Okay, this is oh sorry, I just yelled in the this is going to flare out on the video, but that's all right. It's Dave here
All
from
good.
Amplify, and I'm talking to Domini Forster. Is that the correct pronunciation of your name?
That's right, Dave. Cheers.
All right, so here we go. We're going to get right into it. Have you always wanted to be an artist? When did you get the songwriting bug?
Oh, very early, actually. In fact, when I released my last song, a primary school teacher commented on it and said she remembered me writing lyrics and singing a cappella songs in grade three.
Wow, that's early.
Yeah,
And
but then I got taught guitar by a boyfriend in late high school, and that really my songwriting started to flourish once I could accompany myself.
Okay, and where did that start? If you're singing and all that, is it coming from TV? Is it coming from parents? Or is it coming from influences? Where did that musical stuff start?
Yeah, look, my parents aren't musicians per se, but they're both good singers, and so singing was always happening around the house. And I grew up in Byron Bay, and I went to a Steiner school, and I don't know if you know much about that schooling, but creativity and art is really art and music are really incorporated into teaching in a very foundational way. So it was compulsory to learn a stringed instrument from grade three. So I've actually played violin since I was really little and sung and played recorder and marimba and things from early. So I was really saturating in music.
Wow, wow. Well, Nimbin's I don't know. I've always thought of Nimbin as I drove through or as I stopped there that it was a pretty chilled environment. I think chilled probably, without saying, you know, uh, too much. But is it still pretty chilled? I think I've been reading recently about about Byron having such a huge um, homeless
Yeah.
situation. So,
Yeah, look, it's very tricky in Byron. Nimbin itself, I don't have a big connection to Nimbin actually because my parents moved away when I was one. So I don't, it's really the Byron area, the Byron Shire that feels like home to me. And yeah, look, it's really tricky. There's such a huge transient population there, and there's a lot of people coming in and buying up holiday housing and things like that for Airbnb. And it means that people who've been living there for decades are getting priced out of the housing market, and it is really affecting people in a big way.
right, I can imagine, we don't look after ourselves too well, do we? Okay,
No.
Unearthed High when did Unearthed High occur?
Unearthed High. So that was my second last year of high school, I reckon. I was in about year 11 and I entered a song into, my brother actually convinced me to enter this song that I'd written about the Vietnam War into that contest, and I got into the finals. And that was really, it was a moment where I hadn't really considered how audiences responded to my music. I was really just writing from a creative cathartic place. And so that was a moment of feeling that sense that people could connect to what I was writing, and that was definitely exciting.
Yeah, if music is a drug, audience is really the thing that, it's the high. And
The
so
conduit.
the conduit. So that changes everything. So give us a brief description of the journey since, unearthed, because things would change there. You'd probably create expectations for yourself that aren't met and are met. So what's happened?
Yeah.
What's happened quickly since then?
So I studied music after that. I did a music degree, and I made my first EP, Little Dreamer, which I made with Tony Buchan. He's a fantastic Sydney-based producer. Actually, he might be in the US now. And actually, quite early on in my journey, I met Lior, who is a
Right.
beautiful singer-songwriter. Yeah, a great artist and somebody I admired for a long time. And he saw me performing at a songwriting competition, and he asked me to support him for a few shows. And that turned into quite a few years and hundreds of shows, and was really my initiation to touring and playing for audiences who were really there to listen, those sort of pin drop theatre crowds. And that sort of quite naturally developed into us writing together and me singing harmonies on his songs. And that led to us in 2022 doing a collaboration duo project. We wrote 6 songs together and made an EP called Animal in Hiding, and we released and toured that did 60 shows around the country.
Wow.
I suppose in between all that, I also made my first album, which was an incredible journey to produce a work of that scale and to put on all the different independent artist hats and learn how to make film clips and art and present something really in a fully formed way to the world. Yeah, and I suppose in between all of that musical development and that work with Lior, I also have done some work in the music, community music and mental health sphere, working for an organization that runs songwriting workshops for people living with mental health challenge.
Right.
So, you know, you kind of touched on that element of music making. It's really tricky to live as an independent artist, to make money, to have consistent work. And most of us, you know, need a few strings to our bow. And mental health for me has always been a real passion alongside music. And you can hear it in my songwriting. A lot of the themes are about trying to understand myself and humans and the way we work. So that's been a really rewarding avenue to follow as well.
Well, we'll have another chat sometime about mental health, because I'm as someone that's really worked in this field, personally, you know, my experiential, for a long time, and dealt with, you know, all different forms, and moved myself from, you know, being egoically trying to help people, and then, you know, detaching and coming down and trying to, you know, support their self-discovery and their you know, basically their self-esteem. Basically, you know, you deserve to be here. It's your experience. Just have your experience without the measurement, potentially, and without understanding. Well, then, you know, I think that's a different discussion. So we won't go there, because we'll be here for hours. But it's a great thing. I applaud it enormously, and we all should be doing it in our own way. It's like, I'll just finish on. It's like we're lights, and other people that can't, you know, experience it are in the dark. And so when we come into their sphere, you know, they can see, because there's a light that's shining, because our light's shining. But they've got to develop their own light. And so we've got to help them develop their own light, not just bring our light to their situation, because we can't live with them. And so just to bring this psychology to a situation and then take it away, you know, once a month or once a fortnight or something rather, it's no good, because they're in the dark most of the time, and you've got to feed that light. So it's a lot of support, a lot of time spent.
Absolutely. And I think that music and songwriting in particular
Yes.
has a real power to essentially give people an opportunity to share their own sort of stories of struggle with the human condition, and for that to provide a little window into their experience that other people can relate to and reflect on, and hopefully it can kind of help illuminate things in their life, but also make them feel, you know, less alone in their experiences.
Well, we can work together on that in the future, because I want to create, with our vehicle here, I want to create some sort of support process for that at some stage. Okay.
Fantastic.
Which artists, I mean, how would you describe your sound? Just before I go on, did you play any violin on the tour, on the 60 event tour?
Not on that tour, because we were both busy finger picking on guitar and singing. But I do play violin on my new record, and I use those skills to arrange string parts.
How would you describe your sound?
It's definitely a sort of dark, dreamy folk, very detailed, draws a little bit from my orchestral background. But at the end of the day, it is really about the story and the song and the sharing of an intimate personal experience.
Well, that's good. That's good. Who are the inspirations? Obviously, you know, Leor's been one at the moment, but who have been the inspirations over time that have brought you here?
Definitely Joni Mitchell. I'm not the only folk artist to feel that way. Joni for sure. Laura Marling, a beautiful English singer-songwriter. I've been following her for, you know, well over a decade. Sufjan Stevens is another huge one for me. Beautiful American artist. Again, folky, very emotive, but extremely detailed in his arrangements. And I find that very inspiring. He really creates tapestries of sound.
The Unearthed song about Vietnam seems a bit strange in, you know, in the 2010s,
Yeah.
What was that a Joni Mitchell inspired sort of process? Because she was big into that back in the day.
It's quite funny. It was a school assignment, would you believe it? I was studying the Vietnam War at the time, and we got asked to write a creative response to what we'd studied. And we could choose any medium we wanted. And I was learning guitar at the time, and I decided to write this song from the perspective of a mother whose son has been conscripted and gone to war. And I just didn't realize how much that would resonate with people. And it really,
Oh yeah.
um, yeah, it's really, to this day, it's something that I get messages about from people who've found the song on YouTube and
Lots of
felt
people have Viet vets in their history, and
absolutely.
and it was such a waste of time. And I was alive at the time, and soldiers were coming back after devoting their lives to going over, and they'd get off the plane and get spat on.
Yeah,
It was just a disgusting time. Okay,
absolutely.
your new single, latest single, Magnolia's just been released. What's that all about?
Yeah, so look, that one is about as lush and kind of dreamy and folk kaleidoscope as I get. It's a really kind of groove-based, detailed arrangement. So I'm super happy with how that one came out. The song itself is it's about seasonality and sort of the ever-changing nature of life. And it came out of a period where I was just feeling sort of frustrated by how ceaseless change felt. Just when you think you've got everything together, a new challenge comes around the corner. And my sister had a magnolia tree outside her house, and I went around and it was just covered in flowers. The way magnolia trees, like, they really get covered in blooms. And then a few weeks later, all of a sudden, every flower is on the ground, and they're just kind of like this big carpet of rotting petals, and the tree is completely bare. And it felt like such a reflection of life to me that, things are always changing. And in a way, there's hopefulness in that, because loss is always inevitable, but renewal is equally inevitable.
Loss is essential. Obviously, everything's transitional. And so if you see everything as a step in the direction that you're going in, well, then pain and even depression, it's a transitional process. It's like, for me, it's like you're 5, 6, 7, getting to 8, 9, 10. So if you go back to 1, 2, 3, 4 because it's comfortable, you really haven't made the break. And so you just got to keep forging through when these things take place. And again, it's like in Africa, see it as part of the adventure. That's great. So, okay, you got an album coming out soon too. The Lonely's coming out on June 20. Is that
It
correct?
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just picked up this yesterday from the print
Whoa,
shop,
what a nice
which is
cover.
exciting. So
Whoa,
yeah, June 20th.
whoa. And what's it all about? How many tracks and what are the signature tracks for you?
So it's a 9-track album, and we've had 3 singles so far. So Unraveling, which is a song about anxiety, was the first. Hard Love, a breakup song, if you couldn't tell. Uh, and then Magnolia, the third single's just come out. So
Okay.
I'm super excited to share the rest of the tracks with everyone.
Any videos?
Yeah, there's a video for Hard Love and for Unraveling. In fact, actually, the Hard Love video was a real joint effort. I joined forces with my mum, who's a videographer, on that one, and we made the clip together. And it actually, it
Teamwork.
got playlisted by Rage, which was definitely a little bucket list moment for me. So
Fantastic.
a tick for family collaboration, that one.
Are you touring it?
Yeah, I am. So the tour starts 14th of June in Tassie, and then I've got a Melbourne launch 10th of July. I'm heading to Canberra as well, and to northern New South Wales and Byron Bay, doing some shows with Emily Lubitz, who has just released an album.
Who has brought out just the best, she brought out that best song that, what's it called? The thing about everyone dying, or the
Oh,
mated song.
it's that
It
Dumb
is,
Ways to Die.
it is the best. When you come across it, I came across it a few years ago. We did some publicity for her, and I came across it, and it was just the best video, and I showed it to everyone at the time. because I was
Mm.
saying this is just classical, and it was
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it?
an advertisement for the trains. So oh, it's so good, so good.
I know people have this idea of like, oh, soulless advertising, but there are some fantastic
Oh, no.
creative projects that come out of advertising sometimes.
Well, as you will discover, there's nothing soulless. There's
Mhm.
nothing without energy. And so
Mm,
just the appearance of things that comes from your conditioning. So if you
mm.
change your conditioning, then everything comes in and you're a sponge to the lot of it. Okay,
Mm.
so what are you looking forward to most? So how come I know it's costly probably, but the West aren't going to see it?
Yeah, look, not yet, but stay tuned. There will be more shows. This is just the first leg of them. And yeah, look, it's hard to get everywhere, but I'll do my best. I think, the show that probably I'm looking forward to the most at the moment is the Melbourne launch because it's my
Yeah,
hometown launch.
yeah.
Well, my current home.
Where is that?
That's at the Northcote Social Club, and that's on
Oh,
the 10th of July, and that will be a full band show, so we'll get to really play the album in its
yeah.
entirety.
It's a
And
great venue for it because the crowd's basically on top of the stage, so
yeah,
it's a real connected sort of process. So
intimate. Yeah.
that's great. That's great. Okay, if you could perform with any music artist, alive or dead, who would you choose and why?
Oh, wow. Think probably Joni Mitchell because I love her. I find her a real inspiration. I feel like my music is very inspired by her, but I also think she has a courage and a rawness that I struggle to achieve and I am inspired by. I'd love to just spend more time around it.
Yeah, I love Joni. I'll tell you who else I love from that era that is an absolute superstar when you look into her background, and that's Linda Ronstadt.
Oh yeah.
She's got such a pure voice, but the first that she created, she basically found the Eagles from the support.
Mm.
She basically created, and even now I think it's the greatest selling hybrid album across with the Spanish, not the Spanish, whatever you call it, the Latin stuff. She created an enormous album. So
What
anyway,
album was that?
well, that was a Latin album that she created back then, and it was the greatest selling, album of that type. She did everything. She really was
Mm.
a
A
trailblazer,
force.
and and that's, I'd encourage you to sort of say in the spirit of Joni and those guys, because they really came when there was nothing around, and when women really weren't accepted at all, and they were nobodies, and they had to force their way through. So I encourage you to keep doing what you're doing because basically, in my view, it's the service, not so much the receipt. So
Yeah.
basically, you get your payoff from going out there and doing what you do to your mum, a small audience, a big audience. It doesn't really matter. You still get your outcome. So I encourage you to keep doing it. It sounds like you've got your head on your shoulders over there. I,
Thanks, Dave.
I won't ask you how old you are because women aren't allowed to say that, but uh, you sound like I say you've got about 4 lives in front of you. So just because you think you've got it sorted now, everything will change 100 times before you really get it sorted. Sort of.
Oh, don't worry. I don't think I've ever felt like I've got it
No,
all
no, no.
sorted.
Okay, long-term aspirations.
Long-term aspirations. Happiness? No, look, I would love to be able to continue to make music and to play. Look, playing the Lior shows, doing those 60 shows across Australia of our EP, and playing in beautiful theatres to audiences who were really there to listen. I would love that if I could continue doing that in my life.
Yeah, unearthed high was good too. Recognition's always a good thing because it's sort of saying people value what I'm doing. I'm not just thinking that I'm doing something that has some value with these people, but someone's actually
Yeah.
along and said, "Hey, this person's worth listening to."
Yeah, absolutely. And when you have played for crowds who really listen and who get in touch with you afterwards and tell you what the music means to them, that's really the biggest payoff you can get, I think, as an artist.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, I'm going to finish on some quick questions, but before I do, I want to give you a bit of an quick opportunity to mental health's an area you've worked with especially. With that
Mm,
in mind, we ask for people to give advice to artists in relation to you know, how to start and all this sort of thing in the music environment. Maybe you can give some advice about mental health and what you think artists should do maybe when they're experiencing those sorts of challenges.
Yeah, look, I think absolutely one of the best things you can do is create a bit of a network for yourself. So I have some fellow artists who I've established a WhatsApp chat with, where if I'm struggling with anxiety around a particular part of the process of releasing or booking shows or whatever it is, I can just shoot through a message on there, and there's a really explicit sort of co-support relationship. So definitely, like, use your network, be connected to other musicians, reach out when you're struggling. Also, you know, it's a hard world to just be doing music. Like, that's in terms of sustainability and supporting yourself financially, like, it's really great to just diversify a little bit and have some other meaningful work in your life. And then I would always say a form of self-expression, writing songs. If you're not writing songs about your feelings, which I think most of us are, then write stream of consciousness. Like, just get things out of your body and out of your brain.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the best advice all round is to get mentors, find mentors and collaborators that you trust. Because
Yeah.
basically they also provide you with any information you need because they've come before, and you can dismiss the information, but at least you get the information to sort of learn from. But they're also, like you say, great supports when you're going through that sort of challenge, because they're going to, usually it's in that area, it's only about getting out of the loop. And if you can't get yourself out of the loop, you know, your support network can.
Absolutely. And look, my album is called The Lonely, and part of the reason I called it that is because it's a bunch of songs that are about sort of navigating the human experience and the trickiness that comes with that. And I think that sharing those experiences really makes people feel less lonely. And I think that it's similar in terms of mentoring and struggling with career and creative difficulties. If you reach out, what you'll find out is that, you know, probably the mentor who you look up to has had similar experiences and struggled with the same things.
Yeah. And I think for me, Beyond Blue is a bit late, because basically you're sort of on the edge of a cliff and you're about to jump off, and they pull you back, and you're about to jump off, and you've got to get to people. Like we say, why didn't they say anything? You've got to get to people at the start of their challenge, because this is the sort of thing you can fix things when they're 10% gone a lot easier than when they're 90% gone. So keep your eyes open and keep bringing people in. That's why we you know, we need to live in a more collaborative sort of world. All right,
Absolutely.
here we go. Now I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to finish on some favourites, but there's three questions before that are just quick questions. I'm probably going to dismiss the first one eventually, because every time I ask it, the artists don't answer it. But what's the craziest thing you've ever done? I figure that I'm always talking to overseas artists and arena artists and all this sort of stuff, and they've probably had some crazy sort of stuff go on. So the first thing that comes into their head is probably stuff that won't allow them to get into Australia if they sell. So they'd probably say, no, I'm not answering that.
Well, I'll answer it for you. I'll answer the first thing that comes to mind, which is that in the COVID pandemic, just before the pandemic, I met somebody from Germany, and we got together. So I had this long distance relationship in the pandemic, and I made the choice to get an exemption, a travel exemption, and fly out of Melbourne just as our cases were coming down. And I flew into Germany at the highest point their cases had been so far. when you know, there were all these kind of questions around travel and getting home, and but I'm a big feeler, and I'm a romantic, and I'm no longer with that person, but I had an adventure, and songs came out of it, so we'll call it a win.
Well. Okay, what's the one topic you can talk about for hours?
Oh, mental health, and the nature of the human brain.
Uh-huh. So, as in philosophy, or as
Yeah.
in, you know, ER?
Oh, no, sorry. So I mean the mind, really. I mean philosophy and psychology and just understanding human nature. Yeah.
We're going to have another talk. What's the thing you like most about yourself?
Ah, I would say maybe my emotional reflection and my capacity to communicate about that.
Now, explain that. Emotional reflection meaning.
I think like capacity to understand my own experience, and to see kind of the narratives I'm making in my mind about my life, and then to really be able to express those to other people. It feels like a skill that I got partly through, coming from a family where mental health struggle was a part of the landscape, and I think that that was a challenge, and that's led to some things that I, like all of us, I've got things to work through in therapy. But I think it's also given me a real like emotional maturity and a capacity to reflect on my own experience. And I think that that's part of what makes me a good songwriter as well.
That's great. And you must meditate.
I have to say I do yoga and I do meditate. I don't meditate as much as I should.
They say if you've got time to meditate, meditate for 15 minutes. If you haven't got time to meditate, meditate for an hour.
Yeah, okay, I should take that advice.
It's the most important thing you can do, in my view. There's nothing more important because over the course of that time, in my view, you learn how to meditate. And then so you
Mm,
start off at a place and then you get to a place and eventually you get to a place, in my view, where it becomes source connected. So you're not
mm.
thinking, but you're not thinking like you're thinking in the normal world. It's like pure thought. It's like, you're in that sort of connected space. And so
Totally embodied.
your
I
body's
think,
dumb. So when your mind and everything's going somewhere, your body's not going with it. And so you might have some trauma, but it's not really a whole body trauma. It's just some thought trauma. Whereas in the normal
mm,
sense, when you have trauma, the whole body comes on and your blood pressure goes up and, you start to jiggle and all sorts of stuff. And it just makes it worse, in my view.
yeah, look, I think I definitely even find in a yoga practice that that's part of it, like getting present in your body in the moment. It is kind of a form of meditation in some ways.
It is. Okay, we're going to finish on the hardest questions of the whole experience. So here we go. Favorite album?
Ooh, Once I Was an Eagle by Laura Marling.
Wow, that was quick. Favorite artist?
Oh man, I can't answer that one. There's too many, but we'll give you can take the top three I had earlier.
Okay.
Laura Marling, Joni Mitchell, Sufjan Stevens.
What are you listening to at the moment?
I am obsessively listening to an album called Dreamer Awake by Rachel Sermani.
Ah, wow. Well, we're going to check that out. Favorite movie?
Oh no, that's way too hard.
So I told you they're the hardest questions of the whole lot.
Oh, I used to
Sound
be
of Music, Julie Andrews.
sorry.
The Sound of Music, Julie Andrews.
That's yours?
No. I'm saying that's a great movie. What do you mean? That's a great. Makes me cry every time I watch it. The best,
Uh,
the best love story on print that you've seen.
yeah, look, I mean, just off the top of my head, like, okay, it's not a human nature philosophy film quite as much, but The Matrix, adaptation, the Royal Tenenbaums. Oh, there's just so many.
All great movies. All right. Favorite venue to play. Sorry,
Sorry?
favorite place to visit.
Hmm.
Germany, in expectation of meeting someone that you've never met before.
Yeah, that was fantastic. But yeah, I don't know. Look, I love going home. I grew up in Byron Bay. It has
The
beautiful
great place.
beaches, beautiful nature.
The great.
The town itself pretty touristy, but like the region, Byron Bay,
They got
yeah.
it. They had the best pizza place in Australia in Mullumbimby. It was just magnificent.
Oh no, is it gone?
No, I don't know if it's gone, but
Okay.
when I was there 10, 15 years ago, they had the
Yeah,
best
yeah, yeah.
business.
Yeah.
So, favorite venue to play?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. The Athenaeum in Melbourne is pretty beautiful.
Yeah. I think
Oh
you're
no,
right.
you know what? It's actually Eucharia.
Where's that?
It's on the outskirts of Adelaide,
Aha.
actually. Am I getting this right? I should just check that. It's a really beautiful little venue that is mostly used for classical gigs, this kind of gorgeous hexagonal wooden venue that is built out in the countryside, huge glass doors so that the audience can see behind the artist out into the gardens. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Sounds like
Mount Barker.
What at Mount Barker? Sounds like a Red Rocks experience. Um, favorite food?
Ooh, tacos.
Favorite drink?
Favorite drink? Tea.
Tea. Come on, everyone loves coffee. Favorite person? Favorite person in history, apart from me?
Favorite person in history?
Yeah, I think it's always interesting. These answers are sort of discoveries of themselves because you get these hard people and they'll say something like, rah, 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 rah. And you say, what's the thing you can talk about most or something or other, and they say mental health or something like that. And you just think that they're people that are just on the edge, just killing people,
Yeah.
doing all sorts of stuff, or they say something that's like just obscure. And you sort of
Yeah.
sometimes you'll get people that'll say Mandela, some people will say mum, some people will say something simple. So
It's an interesting one. I can't give you a favorite, but I'll just say that somebody who popped to mind is Oliver Sacks, who's the writer of The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, neuroscientist who kind of made neuroscience accessible to the layperson. Really amazing novelist and human.
all right, and the last one is you do you have pardon me, do you have a tattoo?
No, I don't.
Okay, then you can't have a favorite.
But I am really into lino cutting now, and I just finished making this lino cut to print merch for
Oh,
my album.
wow, that's fantastic. Fantastic. So when you print a t-shirt, you have to send me one.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll wear it here on the interviewing people so we can do some advertisements.
Awesome.
That's it, man. That's it. That's it. I can never, I'm always interviewing people and I've got no idea what I'm going to come into contact with. And I did one for a major artist and they didn't really like the fact that I was conversational after it because I was adding my bits and pieces and they just wanted me to, as you will know from a mental health point of view, we're all the same. There is
Yeah.
there is no once you take ego out of a situation, well then we're just all the same. So, basically we're having a conversation and if you want me to piss in your pocket, well it's probably not going to happen because I'm happy to support your outcome, but
Yeah.
I'm not really here to help you on your journey to, not discover. And so if you keep going
Mm.
down a path that's just off track, I'm not going to support that off track path if I don't think it makes much sense. And so it's been great talking to you because I had no idea who you were and the guys say, "Do you want to interview?" And I think to myself, I'm a bit dour, so I just say yes, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Then I think about the amount of time because we'll create a YouTube and then we'll put up a feature as well. So there's a couple of things we're not getting paid. And we've got plenty of stuff
Yeah.
to do. And then the artist doesn't share. So
Mm.
you don't get the YouTube shared or you don't get something and you wonder, you've just put in all this time and effort. And if you're
Yeah.
worried about how you look or how you sound, well, you're in the wrong game because
Yeah.
you're gonna go up on stage all the time and perform how you are.
Totally.
And the people that
Totally.
try and perform how they want to perform don't come across.
Yeah, authenticity is it's
Essential.
essential, yeah.
Because ultimately the only people that survive are the people that can share who they are.
Mm.
If you're someone else, people don't get that someone else because it changes depending upon the crowd that you're performing to. So I
And
would
it's unsustainable for yourself as
well,
well.
it's unsustainable for yourself, exactly, because it takes you further off track. And off track, you keep on getting, even if you're doing it for the financial outcomes, you keep on getting those outcomes and it keeps on taking you further away from yourself. And so everyone
Yeah.
says, isn't he happy? Isn't he terrific? He's fantastic. Oh, he committed suicide? Why? He had everything.
Mm.
They don't have everything. And that's something that, I'm sure in the future we can, collaborate to try and reduce because, there isn't any need. But keep doing what you're doing. You sound great. I'm really happy that I did the interview. Thank you for your time and good
Thanks,
luck with
Dave.
things and yell out when you need some support. We'll be happy to support you.
Thanks heaps, Dave. It was lovely to chat to you, and I appreciate that it feels human and a conversation. It's
It
not
was
just a
great.
little
I enjoyed,
one-way thing.
I enjoyed it. All right, let's get it out there and tell some more people who you are and get them to check out the
Awesome.
music.
Yeah, thanks heaps, Dave.
Good on you, mate. All the best.
See ya, you too.
Bye bye.